Like most of you, you probably go to Bass Pro, go to Cabela's, grab some arrows, get them cut, and go shoot them. Did you ever think about fletching them? We're gonna show you how. You know, fletch is pretty simple. First off, you have to make a decision. Is it gonna be a vane, a plastic vane, or is it gonna be a feather? Now, the majority of the bow hunters out there are shooting a vane. Why? Because it's a little more durable. Weather and everything else doesn't affect it. You know, so you have that like this, water runs off at the whole 9 yards. But there's still the old traditional guys is shooting a feather. Did you know either way, it's really the same basic principle on how to fletch? The big difference is are you shooting a small diameter shaft or are you shooting a bigger diameter shaft? We're gonna show you how to do it right now. Step one, after selecting your shaft and going through the charts and figuring out what the right calculations are, and what does that mean? Draw weight, length of the arrow. Now, length of the arrow means cut to the riser with a broadhead. So, get that full measurement, look on the charts, and follow the manufacturer's instructions. It's pretty simple. Once you've selected your shafts and you understand what you're doing, now the thing is you gotta get ready, you gotta prepare the shaft for fletching. If you grab this and you do this with your finger, you're gonna see a little bit of residue. That residue has to be removed prior to you fletching. Why? That little dust on there can hurt your adhesion between your vane and your shaft itself. This is a pretty simple process to do. What I like to do is I get a little scour pad. It's rough, I get some alcohol on it, and I grab it like this, and I just lightly rub the shaft like that. Now I'm gonna show you something. See, with the alcohol, look at that soot. That's on every single shaft. I don't care who it is, it's there, so you want to remove that. There's actually two basic types of fletching tools, or jigs we call them. You have a single fletch, like here, magnets run to it, or you have a dual. When I say dual, it does all 3 or 4 at the same time. Either one works great. The big thing is you've got to remember it's got to be calibrated for the diameter of shaft that you're shooting. I'm going to fletch a 4-fletch arrow here. So I bring my index on my receiver here, I bring it all the way to where I need it to stop. I always like doing it exactly the same. On every nock, there's a little notch. See that? I put it in, every shaft will be put in the same way. I turn around, I scrape any excess glue I have on that jig clamp. See that right there? Now I know what I want to do here because I'm going to fletch these bright. So I'm going to take my vane. Notice I'm not touching where the adhesion sits. Right here, that whole plate there, right here, that shelf, don't touch it. Don't leave any like oil skin residue. Bring it to your mark, which I have right on the end of the clamp, and I have it like that. Now, a lot of these glues, what you want to do is have a little T-pin, a safety pin, and have this available because when you open that up, a lot of times it could dry. So what you do is you grab your little pin, stick it all the way in, keep it close by. Here's my fletch. Now, you can go from back to forward or from front to back. It all depends on your preference. What I do is I use my finger right here and I use it as a guide and I start applying the glue. I use it as a guide and I start applying the glue and I keep the same amount of pressure going all the way down the vane. Now I did this purposely to show you something. We've got the light in here, however, you hold that up, you could see that there's a solid glue line the whole length of the vane sitting on the shelf. If you have a tendency of putting too much glue, and most people do, even me, grab a little towel, paper towel, and before you put that vane onto the shaft, just dab it. What it does, it takes off the excess, it leaves just enough. You put your clamp to the end and you slide it down. What you do is you pay close attention to make sure that you have adhesion all the way down the shaft. This is where a lot of people make mistakes, is it's not set up for the diameter of the shaft. They didn't adjust it. Some clamps or jigs actually come all ready to go. Some you've got to adjust, but you've got to make sure that you have it sitting, that vane with the glue is sitting on the entire shaft from the top to the bottom. Let it sit for, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and then do another. All right, so my first one, time to set. What I do is I take my clamp off, applying pressure. I turn it to the next click. And there you go. Now you're going to do that on every shaft, whether you're shooting 3 Fletch or 4 Fletch, whatever you prefer, and you just keep doing this down the line. Once an arrow's done, fletched, we're going to show you a little tip. Now for your multi-clamp jig, it's pretty simple. You put all your vanes into the jig itself, just like that. You apply your glue to all 3. You take your arrow shaft, and inside here, you drop it right in, and you're going to feel the rotate, and it'll stop. So I hit my index for my knock. Now what I do is I hold on to this fairly tight. I twist this, and as I slowly let it go up, it closes the clamp. I put the top on, I apply pressure like that, it's all done. All 3 are put on there right in the same time. Let it sit for a minute. What I normally do is I put a nail, I let it hang. These are actually a quicker way of fletching. But if you want, you can still stay with the single clamp and do this. It's just a matter of your time, what you want to put into it. You know, either one's going to do a great job. The big thing is understanding that you want to be precise. Every single thing you do the same thing. Put your arrow in, make sure it's all clean, put your vane on, put your glue on, dab it so it's not excessive, put it on, give it the allotted time, and sometimes it's real simple. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. And then when you're set, just like we've got here with the single, I have my 4 Fletch right there. Now, what I like to do is turn around, and I'll come in here, and I'm gonna just dab the front ends, just like this. And I'm gonna do the same to the back ends. And all that does is it protects those back and front ends from peeling off, going through targets or whatever. Once you're done, I always like to do is I'll throw it on my spin check. It's another perfect arrow. So now once my arrow's made, my arrow is fletched, now I have to cut it. Understanding your draw length and what type of clearance you need on the particular bow you're shooting. You know, if you're shooting traditional equipment and you're shooting off the shelf, you may want to make that arrow a little bit longer. If you're shooting tight, you know, with your compounds and your window is cut way past center and you're drawing into it, and as long as you understand what size blade you're shooting on your broadhead, you could cut it as tight as you want. But always remember, you got to pay close attention to your bow grip, because you never want that blade to get anywhere close to your top finger, because on release, you get nervous, you can cut it. You don't want to do that. Once you've determined your full arrow length, is you turn around and you use a qualified arrow saw and cut them to length. Cut them all at the same time. Then what you want to do is take a little deburring tool and just deburr after the cut and clean on the interior of the shaft. Why? Because now you just cut that. You ran through a high-speed, arrow saw, and now that dust, those particles like we cleaned on the back end before we fletched, are the same type of things that are sitting inside that shaft. So clean it out, let it dry, and then what you're going to do is you're going to get your 5-minute epoxy or whatever you're using, apply it to the insert, and install it. The big thing is you do not want to turn around and sit it like this on on your work counter. Turn around and stand them straight up. This way there's no pressure touching the end of that shaft. So if that insert or outsert is sitting out and it's sitting on the table like this, a little bit of weight could actually malalign that outsert. So if that happens, then all of a sudden you're like always have that one flyer and you're trying to figure out what it is. Well, it could be that your outsert, actually when it is installed, you didn't install it perfectly straight. Always use a spin check. So when you get that in there, that's why I like using the 5-minute epoxy. When you get it in there, you can turn around, spin it before it dries, make sure I have a broadhead on there, I align it, and I spin it, and I get it perfectly true. It's flying perfect. So that is a perfect arrow. I put it up, let it dry. Continue the process.